Hi, Nathan here. Just thought I would add a little quick message that didn't make it into the main episode, which is my fault. I did forget that, and I do apologize. But I'm hopefully making up for it by this little mini introduction to say there was a message shared on social media, a really sad message that was brought to mine and Richard's attention from Matt Evans. So thanks to Matt for flagging this yesterday before the game. And it was about Daniel Reynolds, who had had a 13-year battle with a brain tumor, and unfortunately, he lost that battle at the age of 38. Now, Dan was a lifelong Wrexham fan, was one of the fan base. Wrexham was his life as much as his family, and he is going to be missed greatly by all those that knew him well, and even those that maybe were fortunate enough to meet him in passing. And particularly, our thoughts go out to his little boy, Toby, who is only 4 years old, and nobody can even come to imagine what that'll be like for him and the rest of the family. Yeah, Daniel Reynolds, lifelong fan that had passed away, and as shared by Matt and shared by Steph, who put a post on Facebook, that Dan's mom has asked if Wrexham fans can, in the 15th minute, I just want to read this so I get it right, in the 15th minute of the match against Burton on Saturday, clap in the 15th minute as a tribute to Dan, as he was born on the 15th and his football shirt used to be number 15. So that's really great, isn't it? And the message just says, please, can we all get together and make this happen, as Dan would have loved it. And I think there's a lot of people that listen to this podcast and a lot of people that will be at the game on Saturday and a lot of people that can raise awareness. So 15th minute of the game against Burton on Saturday, I would say put your hands together as a tribute to Daniel Reynolds, who at the age of 38 was taken far too soon. Right, without further ado, let's get into the episode.
Croeso, hello, welcome back to Rob, Ryan, Red, the Wrexham podcast brought to you in association with Red 10 People Development. On today's show, we'll look back at Wrexham's win at Exeter, dropped points against Cambridge, and look ahead to a daunting task maybe at home against Burton this weekend. All that and more on today's show.
Rob, Ryan, Red.
Now, Nath, people will be saying a daunting home match against Burton, but as we both predicted on last week's podcast, Wrexham were going to drop points in one of the games. It ended up being Cambridge away on Tuesday night. What's your mood while recording this? Are you one of these people who's saying it's a huge missed opportunity because obviously Wycombe dropped points, or are you a bit more optimistic because, look, it's still the same scenario as if both ourselves and Wycombe had won on Tuesday night?
Well, my mood firstly is that I was spot on because I said Tuesday would be the banana skin and you said Saturday. So I will take the small win if that is a win. I don't know if it is one. But yeah, it always just felt like Cambridge, that I don't know if they can still be relegated this weekend or in the next week or two. They're really, really struggling. And so they were always going to throw everything at it. And we were always due maybe one of those games where you don't get the rub of the green and a little bit poor decision making here and there, and you're going to get punished. I think it's exactly what you just said. I think if we'd have won last night or on Tuesday and Wycombe would have beaten Shrewsbury, we'd be in the exact same situation. We'd maybe feel a bit better that we'd have back-to-back wins, but ultimately you're no better off. So I'm actually quite relaxed about it still. Wycombe, the fact that they didn't beat Shrewsbury, didn't rack up the goal difference like I think they thought they would have done and like we thought they would have done. From seeing their fans in the comments to their sort of full-time tweet, it was, how on earth have we not won that? Like, all these other teams are putting Shrewsbury to the sword. Now, we had our own issue away at Shrewsbury, but in the home game, I think 3-0 was it? I think Ollie Rathbone might have scored in that game as well. So, they haven't racked up the goal difference. Imagine if we'd have come on today, Wycombe would run out 3-0 winners, we'd have drawn, goal difference would have been an even bigger factor, and we'd be sweating. it's sort of just been neutralised for another week. Now Wickham go to Reading, we host Burton, and you never know. It's going to go right down to the wire. That Charlton home game, I think, is well, it could have all the hallmarks of being, Notts County Mark Two.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that had Wickham have won, obviously, it would be a very different mood. But the fact of the matter it isn't. I'd still argue not beating Shrewsbury at home is a worse result than drawing of Cambridge away. And, you look at the table, obviously there's always an onus and there's always headlines made when a team chasing promotion doesn't get a result against a team near the bottom. But as we saw this past week, Cambridge actually have something to play for, whereas Exeter really didn't. And we will talk maybe about the decisions. I know Phil Parkinson very, very angry after the game. He's had over 1,000 games in professional management, and he was saying that the officiating against Cambridge was some of the worst he's seen. I think that's a distraction tactic. I think that's him trying to take some of the blame away from his players. Two very poor goals to concede. We missed some good chances ourselves and a little bit sloppy. I don't blame the officials really for why we dropped points. I think it was down to ourselves, to be honest.
Yeah, I see. So there's all that kidology, isn't there? That if you criticise the officiating, you say you've been hard done by, do you benefit next week or the week after? And it's kind of planting the seed that wow, this is incredibly harsh. Or does it go the other way, where referees take a very very dim view of what Parkinson said, and suddenly you're on the end of poor decision after poor decision. You never know. Usually it's the former, and you might benefit from a decision down the line. And I would say I think we've benefited from a lot of decisions. I don't think I said previously, I didn't think that was a penalty in the Stockport game, but I was quite happy to take it. Didn't think that was a penalty against Exeter. I think Rodriguez has gone down under minimal contact. More than happy for him to get it and score it. A much better penalty from Rodriguez this time around. And I wasn't massively convinced about the penalty against Lewis Brunt. Soft. I mean, you maybe thought it was more of a penalty than I did. But again, it's no softer than the Rodriguez one. So yeah, I mean, what was his exact quote? I'm going to find it now, Parky's quote, because he was absolutely raging. So here we go. Phil Parkinson said, that penalty decision is one of the worst penalties I've seen, and to disallowed the goal at the end is completely bizarre. There's no way the liner can be sure that's gone out, but the penalty decision is just incredible. The ref couldn't wait to give them things tonight. And there's also another line in there about how Parky thinks some refs want to make a name for themselves. Who knows? He's a master of
if that's the
mind
case,
games,
what was the name of the referee last night? I don't know his name.
Absolutely
I don't
no
think most people
idea.
listening to this podcast will know what his name is. And again, I don't want to come across as this spoiled, entitled Wrexham fan. We're second in bloody League One with 6 games left. We are in such a good position. We can't act like the world's against us. It's not we're second in spite of what's happened against us. And again, I look back to last season, that Ryan Barnett penalty against Mansfield, where he was fouled 2-3 yards outside the box. We get a penalty.
Yes.
That was a huge win for us and our plight for promotion. Like I said,
Rich, you've said it before. Rich, you said it before though, that there was never going to be a flawless run-in, and neither was it going to be for Wickham, and it probably still won't be a flawless run-in. We've got 6 games to go.
Drop points again quite easily. Again, we always look at Wickham and say, well, they've got a game in hand. Yes, it's away against Huddersfield, who are in free fall at the moment, and that really hasn't gone well. The managerial change there at all. It's not given them the bounce that they would have wanted. But why is that a guaranteed win for Wickham? It really isn't. If they're not beating Shrewsbury at home, they've got much tougher tests to come. Credit to them. There's a reason why they are so high up in the table still. It's because they've got that ability to grind out victories like we have. But I think they are more dependent on Kone than we are on any individual ourselves. So they need him to be playing well for the remaining 7 games to get over the line. Whereas, if someone has an off day for us, I think we've got some more specialists to get over the line. So I think I'm really not bothered by the drop points. It really doesn't bother me at all.
I think as well, if you look at what Wickham fans are saying, they've start the season, people like Fred Onyedema were really playing at a really really high level, maybe team of the year level, and under Mike Dodds is not getting the same production out of players. Now look, maybe this will be a galvanising result for them. A 0-0 against Shrewsbury House has happened. These are going to finish bottom of the league. How have we dropped points to these? And we had similar questions when we lost there. And how on earth have we lost this? Played really poorly. and it went on to spur us on to better results down the line. So let's wait and see. I mean, it feels a lifetime ago now that when we lost to Stevenage and lost to Leighton Orient, and it probably isn't probably a month and a half ago or something like that. But it feels like a lot has happened since then and changed since then. I just wanted to drop a little teaser for the rest of the episode and for anyone who's listening as well, whether you're watching or listening, that Phil Parkinson, Rich, as of today, this is Thursday that this will be out, has been in charge of Wrexham for 3 years and 274 days, which makes him the 8th longest serving manager in the Premier League and the EFL. So I'm curious, if listeners and viewers, how many of those 7 ahead of him they can name. So some of those will be obvious. Some of those, look, is it 4? 2 from League 2, 1 from League 1, and 4 from the Premier League. Have a think.
Interesting. What a tease
So
that is.
8th longest serving manager in the EFL and Premier League.
And again, I
7
think,
ahead of him.
like I said, I think if we were to go up, which we'll get into hopefully at the end of the season, I think that is one of the consistencies that we do have, and it shows again this season. We've just got that core nucleus, that group together who know how to get results. Yeah, we'll see what has to come really in the coming weeks. But what I don't like, Nath, after the Cambridge draw, I understand emotions are high after it. I understand I wasn't happy. I wasn't celebrating the fact we drew. I was, pissed off for a while after full time. But the revisionism then comes in. It's why was Rodriguez playing? Why was this player playing? Why where's Mullin? Where's Palmer? The same team went and beat Exeter at the weekend, and it was very comfortable. And there was no criticisms then of the selection. Of course, you're going to keep the same team if you can for the match against Cambridge. The question I want to have, Nath, is Parky loves having an established team. And when you think of these great Wrexham runs, particularly towards the very end of the season, you can basically name the lineup for the remaining sort of 6 games. We know exactly what Parky wants the team to look like if everyone's available. But when we have these double game weeks, do you think we did miss a trick there? Or is it just hindsight and revisionism now that we didn't get the win that we're saying maybe you should have freshened it up?
So last week, I'm trying to remember, I said that I would have gone more defensive against Cambridge, right? And I'd have gone more attacking against Exeter.
Oracle, don't you worry.
No, but you went the flip side. You said go more attacking against Cambridge and go more defensive against Exeter. And in the end, it was Dobson, James, and Rathbone in both of them. In the same team, an unchanged team in both. Would I have? I don't really know, because I've been critical of the Dobson James axis, and I think actually they looked very, very good against Exeter, who the table tells us are a better team than Cambridge. And I felt like when Dobson rattles in his first league goal for Wrexham, which is an absolute peach, by the way, to put that out there. Congratulations to Dobson. Yeah, I wasn't complaining then. I even texted you, which was probably the jinx that made its way to Cambridgeshire, was that it looked like a training game for the first 20, 25 minutes. I thought Cambridge didn't really lay a glove on Wrexham. I just think, I keep thinking back to Sutty. He's my oracle when it's about just keeping your head, And I felt like there were moments against Cambridge where we lost concentration, we lost a bit of composure. Would Elliot Lee, I know he misses that late chance, but if he'd have started, would that have made a huge difference? I also come back to the fact that I do think that Andy Cannon injury has severely limited your midfield options, because I think there's no player in that team that I think is like him. I think they're all slightly different profiles. They're similar. Maybe you say, well, Rathbone and Lee and Cannon are slightly similar, and Evans is, a backup to a James or a Dobson. I do just think there's a uniqueness to Andy Cannon, and that, really, really serious injury, and we're wishing him well. I'm sure he's enjoying his time off with his PS5 that Humphrey bought him. But I do just think he does leave you a bit of a hole, and clearly Parky thinks it's a little bit premature to have Harry Ashfield sort of thrown in at the deep end amid a run-in that we've said it for months, I think, Rich, that this might be our best chance ever to get out of League One. You never know what the future holds. And so, yeah, I do just think maybe what we're seeing with Dobson, James, Rathbone, that is our midfield now between now and the end of the season. Clearly, Lee is behind Ollie Rathbone. I don't think that's a huge surprise. And we did get a little bit of blowback from our assessment last week that Max Cleworth is the player of the season, in our opinion. A lot of people saying, unanimously it should be Ollie Rathbone. I think that's a good debate. Ollie Rathbone was very good against Exeter. And I thought also Max was very good against Exeter as well. And both were a little bit below par like everyone else was away at Cambridge. But yeah, I just think that Cannon injury, it's not killed us because we're still winning games, but I do just think it does limit the variety we can have in there.
Nate, I've got some breaking news to bring you. We've just received an email to say, do we want some free samples of Wrexham Lager?
Yes.
You need to reply to that urgently. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry for that, guys. But yeah, it is an interesting one because, again, I think we got an email this week, actually. I know we don't always read out emails, so thank you to all you who do get in touch.
We need to do? We need to do it. We need to get a t-shirt saying next week we'll read out emails. I'd wear that.
Yeah, here is one from Peter Walsh, okay? Again, Peter, I love your suggestion. I just do not think this is going to happen. But he says this is what he hypothesizes. He says, what do you think about playing Ryan Barnett at right midfield and then Ryan Longman as a wing back? So I think he kind of means, could we go to a 4-3-3? I think he's basically saying, can we have one of them as a right back and one of them as a winger? That's kind of end of debate, sorry. That's just ain't going to happen under Parky. This would take some pressure off the James Dobson playing together issue, not detract from our defence markedly, given both Ryans are specialist wing-backs, and should improve the opportunities for the midfield to have a more attacking role with better service into the box. He says, I really like Ollie Rathbone playing left midfield in conjunction with Seb Revan at left wing-back. I think they work so well together rather having McLean there in either of the positions. He says he's happy to have James or Dobson interchange at centre mid, but he would love to see Longman and Barnett in the same team together. I just can't see that ever happening.
Question though, just because again we're speculating here on what a future iteration of Wrexham could look like down the line. Let's just say it was a 4-3-3 and this was the team, right? What would you think of this? So Max and O'Connell as your centre backs, say Revan at left back. Who am I putting at right back there?
You'd have to go Barney, I think. Would you?
Barney. I was mainly thinking that you had Rathbone, Lee, and James or Dobson in midfield. I was more thinking of the front three. You could have Smith in the middle, Longman on one side, and Barney on the other. You'd have some unbelievable service into the box with their crosses.
I think particularly, if again next season. I guess regardless of what happens between now and the end of the season, there does come a point of, okay, if we don't go up, do you want another season playing the exact same way? I wouldn't complain at that, but I know some fans would like to see a different style of football, maybe trialled at least, just to see if there is some way to evolve the squad going forward.
There's no way we go up and play more expansive football.
No, exactly. If we go up, we're not going to play with a striker. You know what I mean?
Can we play Howard and a Conquo? And can they both wear gloves? I don't know if that probably won't work. Yeah.
No. So So that's an interesting one. But again, this has been a long running theme. Those of you who listen to the podcast since those non-league days, we've always hypothesized: will Parky ever go to a 4-3-3? Will he ever do this? It ain't gonna happen.
Rich, I remember. Rich, you might remember this as well. But we were in the National League and we lost away at Grimsby. I think it was a night game. I think Jake Hyde scored.
Should be a defensive midfielder or something.
I can't remember. But I'm pretty sure our podcast title, if people went back, is like, "Is this the end of 3-5-2?"
No.
I'd love to check the date on that. I haven't got. My phone is my camera, so I can't check it right now.
October 21, maybe, would it?
I'm pretty sure Jake Hyde scored for them. Let's see if I can find it now.
I think Waterfall scored for Grimsby. 3-1 defeat, wasn't it?
3-1, yeah. And I think we might have even had Tommy Cowson, and the headline of the pod. Yes, we lost 3-1. Jake Hyde put us into the lead. Ryan Taylor, Luke Waterfall, and Max Wright scored for
September,
Grimsby.
actually?
That was 14th of September 2021.
Yeah, good times.
Like 2 months or 3 months after Parky joined.
Yeah,
and we were like, "Is this the end of 3-5-2?" And here we are, the 2nd of April 2025.
Still having the same inane conversation where there's no actual answer. Pete Walsh, thank you very much for getting in touch. I do think it's a very valid suggestion. I do like the idea of it. I know it's an argument lots of fans have and lots of people do agree with. I just don't see it as a starter, particularly not in the run-in, and particularly not, again, like we said, if we were to go up, I think we would be a bit more, even more structured maybe, and a bit more robust in the way that we play. But it's an interesting one. And like we said, the team worked fine against Exeter. So why would you change a winning formula? And like you said, with Cannon sidelined, what changes could we actually have made? And I know we'll maybe preview the Burton game and get onto it again. I wouldn't be surprised if we stick with the same 11 again this weekend. I just don't really know what Parky would do to the team at this stage of the season to change it.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky. And in the next segment, I think we'll maybe talk about some players that weren't involved, because a lot of people made the trip to Cambridge. And I think if you weren't among those, you really need to start getting your stuff together and thinking about the next steps. But yeah, look, you know what I'll say to finish out this first segment, Rich, is that it's amazing to me, and I think there was a reference to this in Sutty's match piece after the Cambridge game, that it's actually remarkable how much the personnel changes. If you think about who played against Cambridge, was it only really Max and O'Connell that were from the National League days in the starting 11? I mean, Brunt, Okonkwo, Rathbone, James, Dobson, all new, Smith, Rodriguez, etc., Longman, McLean. People, long-time listeners will know that, Gorgeous George was your favourite or one of your favourites. Ryan Barnett, we were talking about only at the start of this season about how many millions is he worth, interest from Stoke, interest from Preston. Are we going to lose him to the Championship? Is he worth 4 or 5 million? He now, can't get a look in. Elliot Lee, been amazing for us on the bench, and maybe he's getting cameos. So yeah, it's a funny old game. Players that Tom O'Connor, there was a point where Coventry were trying to get him. We rebuffed that approach, and he's now sort of fallen a little bit down the order, a little bit by the wayside. And all the time, we keep winning and we keep getting promoted. And Parkinson's constantly told, well, it's an easy job, and my nan could manage this team. That's what the favourite on TikTok is. My nan could manage this team with the financial resources Wrexham have got. My nan would be able to play this level of football. I mean, sounds like his nan's a football manager, some of these comments, because Parkinson has done an amazing job, while maybe not so obvious, like ripping the squad up and starting completely over. But little by little, he's changed it and phased players out. I'm not saying that there's no future for a Barney or a Lee, but it's not been an overnight job. It's just a slowly sort of phasing out of some players and phasing in of others.
Nathan Salt and Rich Fay.
Well, Nath, one of those players who might be being phased out, I suppose. Much to the disappointment of Wrexham fans. Paul Mullin, he took to Instagram as well on Tuesday night, didn't he? Saying he was gutted not to be involved. His first love against the wife, he called it. Married to the game, married to Wrexham Football Club. Yeah, he had that phenomenal season with Cambridge. The stand was named after him. He dropped down to help Wrexham in their plight to get out of non-league. He did that. He is a great of both clubs in the modern era. And yeah, he wasn't involved. As you mentioned, there were some players who travelled to Cambridge in reserve, just in case we would have needed them. Paul Mullin wasn't even one of them. And yeah, I know it's the tedious debate. Some people will be rolling their eyes. People will be tuning off because they're sick and tired of hearing it. But is he worth a go?
I think, look, so 23 players, by my calculations, I think that's right. It wouldn't be more than that. 23 players made the trip to Cambridge. So I don't know what their new stadium's called. I just call it the Abbey, but it's called the something Abbey, the Abbey Stadium. And obviously the starting 11, Okonkwo, Brunt, O'Connell, Max, Longman, McLean, James Dobson, Rathbone, Smith, Rodriguez. The bench, who was on the bench? Howard, Scar, O'Connor. Who else is on there? Fletcher, Marriott, Lee, if I've already said him. And then, in reserve, Callum Burton went. So 3 keepers they took. George Evans went down. Harry Ashfield went down. Seb Revan went down. Mo Farl went down. So, 5 strikers were taken to Cambridge. None of them are Paul Mullin. Now, we know Parky doesn't operate on sentiment anyway. We've said before, I think you and I both don't think he'll kick a ball for us again this season, right? I think, are we in agreement on that, or do you
Unless
disagree
the
there?
last day we were already up. But yeah,
Right, but if there's something
he
to
won't
play
play a
for,
meaningful match this season for
if
Wrexham.
there's something to play for, I think you and I are both in agreement that he's not suddenly going to come back into the fold without injuries, without something drastic happening, and knock on wood that doesn't happen to any of the players in the squad right now. And I think him posting on Instagram, because he's posted a couple of times on socials recently, and he said nonsense in response to somebody suggesting there'd been a bust up with Parky, and now obviously he made it plain that he's not injured and he was gutted to not be involved, and you see him in all the training pictures and essentially just not being selected. And what I would be curious to know is, what do you want to do? Do you want to, at the end of the season, if Wrexham get promoted, or even if they don't, do you want to sit there and take your very lucrative contract and let it run? Because when does that run till? 2027 or something like that? I'm pretty sure because when they made that announcement on, was it New Year's Day or Christmas Day, or I think it was New Year's Day, when him and Lee both signed those extensions, and it was a great start to the new year, 2024, I think. And it was deals running to 2027. I think for Mullin, he's still got a lot left to give. I just don't think it's to Wrexham. And I know that Humphrey Carr spoke this week about Mullin does have a future at the club, and that there's still a place for him at Wrexham.
But Humphrey's never come out and say he's not got a
No,
future.
of course he's not. But I'm just saying all the evidence points to the contrary, that he is fifth choice and Ollie Palmer might be sixth choice. And who knows? You can flip them around. Maybe if there was an injury, maybe Palmer would be the fifth choice or whatever. It's not really important. Neither of them are involved. I know Ollie Palmer's dad replied to one of our tweets saying, what would we do for Saturday? And I responded that I think Parkinson will go with an unchanged team and likely an unchanged bench. I don't think he'll be recalling Mullin or Palmer off the back of a 2-2 draw at Cambridge. And yeah, we've said it to death. But I think Mullin now has a decision to make, whereby maybe you need to start putting the feelers out. Maybe you need to think, I don't want my career, when I've got so much left to give as a goal scorer, to dwindle in the sidelines, with respect, in an Anthony Ford type, Will Boyle type role, where you're just an extra body in training.
I can imagine that clip there of you getting sort of clipped up for when Paul Mullin scores the hat trick on the final day to get promoted, and it's Nathan.
I don't mind.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good problem to have. That's
why people think that's an issue. That's an issue for me. Apparently, like people think that's bad for me. But I'm more than happy if that's the case. Love it.
Part of me still does think, what if Paul Mullin has a pre-season, because he was plundering goals for fun. The confidence he's got, the strike against Blackpool. I love the man. I really want him to succeed. I still want a Paul Mullin Wrexham future. And part of me, there is that voice in my head saying, give him a pre-season. Give him that, fully fit, make him the main man. But then, as we said last week, what was it, 26 appearances he had in League One this season? 3 goals. Can we really...
I think he's made the matchday squad once in the league in the past 12 games. And that was against Mansfield, and I'm not actually sure he came on. So if you've made them... And he's fit as well. Let's not kid ourselves that I know he's not had the preseason, but he's been fit for months.
Yeah.
And I don't get the impression that he's a sluggish trainer, or he's fit and ready to go. And I don't think, okay, yes, the wear and tear on the body is immense from preseason, but he could play now if they wanted him to. They just don't want him to. And the question would be that if you give him a full preseason, etc., but are Wrexham not going to go out and sign another striker, regardless of the division that they end up in next season? Are they not still going to have Sam Smith? Are they not still going to have Rodriguez? Are they not still going to have Mo Farr? Maybe Mo Farr gets sent out on loan. I don't know. Are they not still going to have Jack Marriott? I don't know. A lot would need to change for me to see this turnaround. I feel like Parky makes up his mind on players. It might not be the case in this instance, but he made up his mind on Tozer. He made up his mind on Hayden. He decided when it was the end for them. They didn't decide, did they?
That's what Brit managers do. They make the tough decisions that fans, like you said, would maybe have too much sentiment to make. They see behind the scenes. They see every single day in training. And Parky will have the plan in place for next season. He will already know, depending on which league we're in, who stays and who goes, really. I think he will have those decisions kind of made up in the back of his head. So We'll see. It's the weekly Paul Mullin chat. We'll be back next week as well for the same after we've lost 4-0 to Burton or something. But
It's Rich. You mentioned that about great managers, and obviously you've covered Premier League football for a long time, like I have, and it's you remember
no one's
when
irreplaceable either. Do you know
no,
what I mean?
but
That's one of the other things I've learned in football a lot is you often see, like when Liverpool sold Coutinho, and I know there's a lot of money, people are
mm,
like, but how would you replace him? Well, they built a better team. I look at Sir Alex
mm,
Ferguson selling Beckham, selling Yap Stam in the 90s, selling players or getting rid of players who were then at their pomp. But for the greater good of the team and building something better. And I know Paul Mullin is bordering on a Wrexham legend, and we always talk about how many goals we end up scoring for the club. But if Parky sees his ceiling as League One and he's not seen enough from him this season, then he's not going to keep him around just for the sake of it, just because he's
mm.
popular with the fans, just because he's done so much in the past. That's just not what he's employed to do. Phil Parkinson's employed to win matches for Wrexham and play the team he thinks can do that. And it says a lot about who he selects every week.
Mullin's legacy is secure, whatever happens now. If he
Yeah.
kicks a ball for us again, or he doesn't kick a ball for us again, his legacy is completely secure. He has got legendary status. He scored over 100 goals for the football club. Not many people can ever say they've done that or will do that.
Do you think that there's going to be this element of Paul? Because I've been thinking about this, and we've been speaking about it on away days quite a lot with different people, different friends and stuff. And it's, again, this is maybe a conversation for the summer, but it's what would Paul Mullin do if he was told, look, you've not got a future at the club anymore? Do you think he would, one, drop to a lower division? I think that's beneath him. He's already proven himself at League 2 level. Do you think he'd have the fight to say, look, people still have question marks about me at League 1 level, so I'll join a rival? Look, Wrexham could be in League 1 next season. He could play against us. But he almost needs to prove to himself he's at League 1 level. Or do you think, there is even the argument, look, this guy's a superstar. He's been in Deadpool. Could he go to MLS? Billy Sharp went to LA Galaxy. Could Paul Mullin go and play, not as a designated player, in the MLS?
See, maybe this is one for the summer, but because I was having a conversation with a friend who is setting up his own team, not in MLS, but in the kind of the soccer pyramid over in the US, and we were joking about could he make a pitch for Ollie Palmer? Does Ollie Palmer fancy a little rendezvous in Texas to see out his career? So maybe watch this space. But I think Ollie Palmer seems the one that would be much more it would appeal to him more to make that move to America as a kid, a little bit older. Mullin is very, 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 as we know, family focused, which is amazing. With Albi and all the work he's done for your space and autism awareness and all that good stuff. So I actually wondered. I was thinking, and I mentioned this to somebody more recently, that Ryan Lowe is at Wigan now, manager at Wigan. I'm pretty sure he knows Mullin quite well. So I wonder whether something like a Wigan would be a good fit, or do you go back to Cambridge? I don't really
Or do you
know.
stay at Wrexham? Do you mean that is the question?
Or just stay at Wrexham. Yeah. So, but I was going to say, to kind of wrap this part up, is that remember when Tozer came out the team, and I think there were games where I think it might have been Notts County away was one. He was one of those standby players. There was an injury to, I think, Tunnicliffe in the warm up, and Tozer went from being sat in the stands to starting the game, and he played really well. And then as it went on, I remember Colchester. We had a podcast where we were talking about how Tozer was essentially coaching the defence in that game from the sidelines. So he was warming up, but with no prospect of coming on. And I remember at the time people saying, "Oh, we could do with Tozer now. We could do with that long throw. We could do with Tozer. We could do with Tozer." And eventually Parky stuck to his guns and said, no, I'm going to move to O'Connell, and O'Connell's going to be more progressive. And now you see the fruits of that. O'Connell's played a hell of a lot of games, and we even had some shouts that he should be player of the season. I've got total faith in Parky, even when you think, wow, this seems a little bit premature. I wouldn't even say in the Luke Young case, because I think more people, I think I was in the minority of keeping him in the side. But I think Tozer is probably the better example of where I'd be really useful now in the short term, but Parky was looking at the slightly longer term. And if Sam Smith is going to be our main man for the next year, 2 years, 3 years, he wants to make him feel that. And is he going to feel that with Mullin there? I just think like little things. Sam Smith getting his own chant, being the guy on the end of chances. Obviously scored a good header at Cambridge, and I don't know, football's ruthless. There's always that thing about They love you until they can replace you.
That's
And
how we see you on the podcast.
who knows? Well, you're auditioning people as we speak, unless I can get those Wrexham lager
Oh,
samples
yeah,
over the
that's
line.
your. We will see. If you are watching on YouTube, tune in next week where hopefully myself and Nathan are, having a cold one, and hopefully toasting another Wrexham win. And Nath, speaking of that, Burton at home this weekend. We've spoken there about, the hindsight, maybe the revisionism of Tuesday night, the squad changes you could see. One, do you think Parky will change up his lineup? And two, would you like him to?
Would I like him to? I thought Ryan Longman was very good. I really liked his deliveries, so I would stick with him. I would be surprised if Revan went from standby to starter. So I would imagine it'd be McLean again. I didn't think McLean was great against Cambridge, but I thought he was very good against Exeter. How much emphasis are we going to put on one game? Burton, look, they're a funny old team because they got a big win, a come from behind win against Leyton Orient, who we did not beat. Leyton Orient, one of 7 teams that we did not beat home or away this season. So let's not shrug that off as an okay result. That is a huge result for Burton, and they are fighting for their lives to try and get out of the relegation zone. Much like Cambridge are, but I think Burton have an even greater chance. And to do that, they need to get a result.
No.
Yeah, better squad. Charlie Webster, I think, in midfield. I think he scored for them against Leyton Orient. Brilliant player. Anthony Ford's on the bench for them.
Yeah, they've got this great striker I'd love us to sign called John Daddy Bodvarsson.
He wasn't involved against Leyton Orient. Neither was James Jones. So whether either of those will be involved, it'd be good if the trio, if the ex-Wrexham trio, because if we're going to indulge a little bit, maybe it's a bit patronising actually, but you'd like James Jones to get a nice reception, and you'd like Ford to get a nice reception
because they've got injuries, haven't they? I think that's why they both missed out on Tuesday night.
Yeah, so Ford was on the bench, but I think Bodvarsson and Jones are dealing with injuries. But it's one of them games where I don't like saying Burton have nothing to lose because they have 3 points they can lose, but they are expected to lose against Wrexham, and I'd be curious at what approach they take. Do they try and catch us cold? Because we can be sluggish starters. I think you saw in that Stockport game, we were a little bit slow out the traps. I know Stockport didn't have an immense number of chances. I think it'll be similar. I think it'll be a contain job for a little bit, let Burton kind of blow out a bit of steam, and then go for it. I think it'll be exactly the same team, Rich. I think he'll go unchanged. It's not going to happen. Maybe I'm like the person who emailed in, but I'd love to see Harry Ashfield on the bench as a different option, just as a bit of a live wire that they don't really know, a kind of good ball carrier in there, just something a little bit different. And I know maybe he's just like a younger, Elliot. You've got Elliot Lee on there, so is it just having 2 of the same? But I think the ability to freshen up in midfield, where you're going to come up against people like Webster and younger, fresher legs, I do wonder if Ashfield is worth more of a go on that bench. Do we need a Scar and an O'Connor on there? Do we need so many defenders if we've already got plenty of players that can slot in there?
I think that is maybe one of the very, very few criticisms I'd have of this squad rebuild, or maybe even squad selection, is that quite often I think that, like you said, maybe the bench is a bit too similar in terms of the options you've got to bring on there. You've got 2 strikers who are at times very similar profile, or you've got, like you said, 2 centre-backs who are basically only playing for one position anyway, and then obviously you've got to have the insurance policy of the goalkeeper. And yeah, maybe it's worth putting that sort of wild card on there in terms of Harry Ashfield. And I suppose the other overarching theme is it comes back to last summer, the pursuit of McAtee, the fact we didn't buy an out-and-out Lee replacement. I know Rathbone's proven himself to be capable of playing in an advanced role if required, but it's still maybe better as a box-to-box player, given he's got the legs and the dynamism really to drag the ball over long periods of of the game and over long distances.
It was quite interesting about on the Ben Foster podcast that Humphrey was on, and I feel like he's been on every podcast except ours, so we won't say that too personally. But he did mention on the Ben Foster podcast that essentially we offered John McAtee the exact same deal. So it wasn't like Bolton trebled his wages, or we were willing to put our money where our mouth was with John McAtee, and he just decided that he wanted to play for Bolton. So
I suppose before the start of the season, though, it seemed that point would have been. Do you know what I mean? In hindsight, again, it's very easy to say you should have joined Wrexham, but Bolton were a better chance of promotion before a ball was kicked this season, weren't they, than Wrexham?
Before a ball was kicked, yeah.
So I don't begrudge him for doing that for footballing reasons. Obviously, as a Wrexham, with my rose-tinted glasses on and being biased, I think he's foolish for turning us down. But I don't think the club really could do anything more. And it also proves, if that is the case, it's also quite refreshing that the club haven't just thrown money at it and said, "Okay, well, we'll pay you double what Bolton will play. We'll pay you more." Do you know what I mean?
Right.
We said, "Look, this is the same offer. Join whichever club you want to," which is refreshing as well because, as we said, we get so much lazy criticism saying you're just buying your way out of the league. That's obviously not the case.
Rich, maybe this isn't like super shocking now, given we did that video last week on the finances, and all the arrows were up and green, and this 155 growth and this 155%, and an extra 10-12 million on sponsorship and yada yada yada, and that was in League Two, and we're expecting those numbers to go up again and whatnot. When we were younger, though, if you'd have said Wrexham could make an offer to one of the most creative players at the level, and we can offer the same contract as Bolton Wanderers, I'd have thought that's insane. Bolton Wanderers, I know Bolton Wanderers are not the force they once were. They did play in Europe. I remember them playing in Europe with Kevin Davis, and when they had the days of JJ Okocha and Kevin Nolan and Big Sam Allardyce and all that sort of thing. I get it. They're operating on a different budget now, a different type of time. But still, in my mind, they're what I remember sort of the Premier League when I was growing up. So the fact that Wrexham are in a position where they're earning more than these Championship clubs, they can offer contracts to the tune to equal a Bolton Wanderers or Wigan, better than Wigan's and all these sorts of things. I think it's so bright, it's so positive. And I was looking through our Spotify comments recently, and one of them said, "Look, guys, we won, and you sound so negative." And
Welcome
also,
to Rob Brown Red.
And also, I will say, I was meant to bring this up for weeks because I can't remember who said it, but somebody on Spotify said, "Who is responsible for the episode titles, because they are the best thing I've seen." So Rich can get all the credit because I don't do anything.
It's one of the few things I do.
I would say he works hard on them, but he just seems to come up with them. So all these puns, Rich is responsible for. Yeah, it's just like sometimes you check yourself, and we can be as critical as ever. We can be that critical friend 24/7. I mean, we are up there with the best of the best right now, and we have an amazing opportunity. 6 games to go. I mean, here, Rich. I mean, you'll say ours, but if I offered you now these run-ins, you tell me which you think you would rather have. Okay, so I know our run-in, but. So I'm going to give you our run-in, Wycombe's run-in, and Charlton's run-in in no particular order. But here you go then. So the final few games. Would you rather have Lincoln at home, Cambridge away, Northampton at home, Wycombe away, Wrexham away, and Burton at home? So that's 3 home games, 3 away games. Reading away, Huddersfield away, Stevenage at home, Bolton away, Charlton at home, Orient away, Stockport at home, or Burton at home, Wigan away, Bristol Rovers at home, Blackpool away, Charlton at home, or Lincoln away. They were in reverse order. Charlton's running, Wycombe's running, and
very wordy,
Wrexham's
that wasn't it?
Running. It was, but look, Wrexham have got 3 home games. Simplified, Wrexham have got 3 home games: Burton Albion, Bristol Rovers, and Charlton. 2 of those in a relegation dogfight. 1 of those in the hunt for automatic promotion. And Wrexham's 3 away games. Wigan Athletic, I mean, they're in basically no man's land. Blackpool, they've still got an outside shot at the playoffs. And Lincoln, they've been a little bit below par this season, but still a tough out. You wouldn't want to be going to Sincil Bank needing a win, I wouldn't say. Wycombe, I mean, they've got to play Reading and Huddersfield away in the next 2. They're both pushing for the playoffs. Stevenage have been our nemesis this season, beat us home and away. They've got to go away to Bolton. Charlton are pushing for the automatics. Bolton obviously pushing for the playoffs. Orient still pushing for the playoffs, and Stockport, I don't know where they are. They're gonna be in the playoffs, but are they pushing for top of the playoffs? Maybe a late sneak for automatics. I'm not sure that quite be the case. And Charlton have got Lincoln at the Valley, Cambridge away, Northampton at home. Cambridge and Northampton both scrapping around relegation. Wickham away. I mean, look at Charlton's last three. If they're in it, right? You know, some people said if Charlton can just get chip away, 2 more points, 2 more points, 2 more points. Imagine they go and have a shot at the second spot, and they've got Wickham away, Wrexham away, and Burton Albion at home in the run-in. It just has the feeling that it's going to go to the final day. I can't shake the feeling that we'll be turning up at Lincoln, needing to get something.
I think it'll be decided basically in that Charlton game, in the sense that by that time, one of us will maybe need a point on the final day, or one of us will be up on basically goal difference, but do you know what I mean, not actually up. That's how I feel it'll be. I don't think anything will be decided till that final day. Let's hope it's Wrexham going to Sincil Bank, knowing that, hey, they're basically up by proxy. They've just got to somehow not lose 25-0 or something. And yeah,
and
we'll see.
We're still waiting to hear, aren't we, about Charlton? I think it's on the cusp now that they need to make an announcement if it is being moved for TV.
I think it's by the end of this week. Technically, they might have had to have.
Yeah, I very much hope that remains a Saturday 3 p.m. But we shall see. It's exciting. I know there's a lot of people out there that have sent us messages about Blackpool tickets. I know they were really in demand. I think we're both very fortunate, aren't we, Rich, that we did manage to get ourselves a ticket to go to Blackpool away. My advice, if you are looking for a ticket for Blackpool or any of the games left, keep an eye on social media. Make your plea on social media. Sometimes things come up, people get ill or last minute. I know for Exeter and Cambridge, there were tickets popping up very, very close to the day and around the match. So keep an eye. And if you're following remotely, keep the faith, as I put on Instagram. Keep your heads, as Sutty would say, my oracle. Because it's just an unbelievable opportunity we've got now. You know, Burton Albion at home to lay down a marker in what you never know what Reading could do. Maybe Reading get turned over by Wickham, and you know what as well. We got sent a message on Twitter last night, Rich, that said if Wickham go up from here and we don't
Fair play to them.
And we don't flop it, we don't sort of not hold up our end of the bargain, and they go up, they've deserved it. Fair play to them. And if we go up, we've deserved it. And if Charlton do it from 6 points back or whatever it is, they deserve it. So honestly, may the best team win. It's a race to the finish now. No more midweek games. It's all hell. 6 games for us, 7 for Wickham, 6 for Charlton.
Maybe no more Saturday 3 p.m. games as well if that Charlton game gets moved.
Well, what is it? 12:30 against Burton.
12:30.
12:30 against Wigan.
Friday against Bristol.
Good
Monday,
Friday,
Blackpool.
Monday, yeah. Wow. So I don't know.
Say goodbye to Saturday 3 p.m. But yeah,
it's just amazing, Richard. You know, the opportunity we've got now is I'm both excited and scared, because as I said a few weeks ago, the longer that goal difference doesn't get chipped away at, the more scared I become that if we were at Sincil Bank, let's not even put that into the universe. Let's just leave it at we're going to get there. 6 games to go. This is an amazing opportunity.
Was it Bristol Rovers a few years ago who got promoted? They had to win by 6 goals on the final day. There was 7-1 or something.
That was Joey Barton, and Scunthorpe, I think it was, put out an academy keeper, and Northampton lost out on goal difference, and they were absolutely raging, as you would be. So please, nobody put out their academy sort of 16, 17-year-old goalkeeper, please, against Wickham.
Yeah, we'll see. So Nate, what are you expecting this weekend then? How optimistic are you for 3 points?
Win. I am going to go a 2-0 win against Burton Albion, and I also think Wickham will beat Reading.
I'm going 1-0 winning at Burton. Horrible, cagey, disgusting, parky ball, but 3 points nonetheless, hopefully by full time.
Are we going to have an advantage, or are we going to be as you were next week? That's the question, Rich.
Yeah, that's what we will see. And thank you very much for joining us on today's episode of Rob, Ryan, Red, brought to you in association with Red 10 People Development, and maybe Wrexham Lager from next week. Let's see how much we can get them to send us. We want vats and vats of the stuff. Thank you very much as well to Wrexham-based band Hypnotic for the music, the stings we use in the show. Take care wherever you are in the world. A reminder, you can get in contact with us, robryanred@gmail.com, robryanred.com as well, the contact us page. If you're new around here, please do leave a like and subscribe. It really does help us to grow the podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in. Have a great week, and we'll see you again next time.
A Wrexham AFC podcast with Nathan Salt and Rich Faye.